Hello. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this conversation. I'm very happy to be here with Nadia Hahn. Hi, Nadia.
Hi, Rob. How's it going?
I'm good.
That's good.
I'm a little nervous. We're in an empty restaurant.
Empty restaurant.
An empty restaurant.
What do you do?
We're in the Free Times Cafe in downtown Toronto, which is an absolute blast. And Nadia and I have something in common, is that we both had papillary thyroid cancer.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're very involved in doing stuff. So we just wanted to talk about what we're up to and what's going on. You have an awesome blog. You have an awesome blog, and I was looking at it today, in fact, and it's amazing. You got like how many hits?
I've had over 30,000 since April, so that's like 6-7 months.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot since April.
Yeah.
Holy man.
Well, it didn't quite really start that way because originally I just thought, okay, I'm going to let my friends and family know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it evolved to this weird transformation and became like a health and wellness website. So it kind of changed, and all these people are writing to me, and I'm amazed with what it's become.
It's incredible. And you cover so many amazing topics on it too. Like I was seeing today, it's like one of those things that's not just about thyroid cancer, it's about so many different aspects of it. Like you do a lot of great stuff on vegan food, which was really cool, and even like, you know, talking about playlists and stuff like that helped you out when you were going through diagnosis.
That's right.
Really cool.
Thank you. Like when I started, it's called Blue Butterfly, and when I started it, I thought, you know, when I was first diagnosed, I couldn't really find like a first-person story about thyroid cancer, someone I could relate to, and I looked, and I said, you know what, as I started working on the blog, I want this to become like my story, and I want people to be able to find out everything they've ever wanted to know about thyroid cancer. So, and more.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing. There's a lot of lightness to it, and there's a lot of humor to it, which I really love. And there's like so many awesome book reviews, and you talk about movies you like, and you just get a sense of who you are as a person too, which is really lovely.
Thanks. It's just been an interesting journey, and you know, it's taken me in so many directions. Because originally, when I got diagnosed, I asked, you know, how did I get this? And I noticed, like, when I read your book, Kicking Cancer's Ass, a lighthearted guide to the fight of your life. You were also concerned, you thought you caused your cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And I wondered the same thing. I asked, what did I do to get this cancer? I was 33 years old getting this diagnosis. I didn't know how I got this. Where did it come from? Something I ate? Did I work too much?
Yeah,
Did I not have enough sleep? So all those kind of questions. So those questions led me to developing the blog. But for you, I just wonder, like, how did you resolve that issue of thinking you caused your cancer?
Man, that was something. It really kept me up nights, like, you know, and I'm not even kidding. I'm sure it did to you too. It was just like, that's one of the things. You wake up at 3 in the morning, you go, what did I do to deserve this? Was it something I ate? Was it something I talked about? Was it something I thought? I thought for a while it was karma. Do you know what I mean? Like, I make a joke about this in one of my shows, but, you know, I figured out it was because I stole a chocolate bar when I was 6. And it was God getting back at me. And I know that's insane, but you kind of think those crazy things.
It was a weird sign, I guess. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I actually had this conversation with a couple of, one woman who had 3 cancers, one of them was thyroid, another woman who had juvenile diabetes, and we were talking about how did we know, was there something that we had some sign when we were younger that this was going to happen later for us? And it's interesting.
And it's funny because I don't know about your treatment. In my treatment, no doctor or no nurse ever said, this is probably what happens. Stop doing this thing. You know, whether it was, you know, eating meat or getting sun, or like nobody even addressed it. So in terms of how you resolve it, I guess you just kind of come to terms with the fact that you're just like, well, nobody really knows unless you've been smoking for 20 years.
Well, I mean, that wasn't even, like, when you look up thyroid cancer, there they said radiation or heredity. And there were thyroid issues in my family, but I was the first one with the cancer diagnosis. So for me, coming to veganism was, I actually started doing readings about I was curious because I thought maybe it's the food.
Sure.
And it was the first time I read something that said by eating and changing your diet, you can actually decrease your chances of getting another cancer, or getting re-diagnosed, or for it to come back.
Right.
And also one thing that helped me a lot was the alternative treatments, and I noticed that you talked quite a bit about that in your book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you, like, what kinds of things did you find helpful?
I found it really useful to, of course, I found Western medicine really helpful, and I absolutely did, and I needed it. And I also found that going to a naturopath was really terrific. And
prices are astronomical.
Oh my God, it was a lot of money, and I had benefits, and I was very glad for that.
Oh, okay.
So it was
at least one of
covered.
Us does. One of us doesn't have benefits.
No, come on, but you got this awesome job.
Yeah, a lot of things you don't know about teachers. You don't get the benefits.
Fairly not. Okay.
Yeah.
Actors got benefits, but teachers not. That's surprising. Yeah, but my naturopath was amazing, and was it really open, and he treated the whole person. Like I walked into his office not just as a thyroid with a tumor on it. I walked into his office as Rob, as a whole person, and he wanted to talk to me, and he was like concerned for my well-being as a whole, psychologically and everything, and it made a huge difference.
That's cool. Because one thing I also noticed that I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, you're a guy, and you're opening up about cancer, and I don't find there are a lot of resources that are guys directed. Like, even in terms of when I was going to my support groups and all that kind of thing, the male presence is kind of lacking. And I don't know if it's because they weren't marketing enough to get the men out, or men just less likely to access those resources. What do you think about that?
That's huge. That's an awesome question, and I had not thought of it until you posed it. You know what? I bet it's a cultural thing. I bet it's a cultural thing where I think men are much more socialized to, if you got a problem, maybe you tell a couple people, but you don't talk about it wide, and you don't seek help. Like, man, you deal with it, and you deal with it on your own, you put your head down. And I think women, in a much more healthy way, are socialized to kind of reach out and go, hey, I got a problem. Hey, can you help me out with this? And so I think as men, we are trained to stick to ourselves.
Well,
I'm guessing.
I'm glad you were starting to break the mold there. Getting out there, getting your story out, and writing a book like this, because I just thought, this is really interesting. I'm very, this is amazing. He's talking a lot about thyroid cancer, helpful strategies for any cancer patient, but also as a guy who's actually taking steps to develop, access all the resources.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And gosh, we're a bit of a mutual admiration society. Because I just think the level of vulnerability that you've shown, and there's so much strength in that kind of vulnerability, there really is, in your blog, and just in sharing your own personal story on a daily basis, and in not knowing how, what's going to happen. Like, you shared stuff when you don't know how it's going to turn out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? And that's really vulnerable.
And that was a bit scary for me, because I found that when I first started this blog, I hadn't really told very many people. I think after I did my radiation isolation, I decided, okay, I'm letting people know. My first step was telling folks on Facebook, and they have like 800 people on Facebook. So all of a sudden, getting all this pouring of like, wow, we didn't know what's going on, and then putting it on the blog was just like another step further.
Sure. And
then there were some things I just didn't know if I should write about, because they started getting to that personal line, and I did maintain like a journal and diary and thoughts. The blog was a separate thing, and there's some things I had to decide, because as a professional, I'm like wondering who's going to read this for sure. So one thing I really like to focus on is the scar. I have an adventure series called Meaty, and it's all the things that I just talk about my scar and photograph the scar. And
wicked.
Interestingly enough, my fiance was at work, and people were like, ew, who did that? That's nasty. That's gross. And he said, that's my fiance. I'm going to marry that woman.
I can say that girl. She's brave and she's awesome. I'm going to marry her.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
It's so funny, because like so many of these, I'm sure you've run into this, and I've run into it because I've done this book, and I've done a show as well, and people go, and I use comedy, and people often say, people say, are you sure? Are you sure we're using comedy? And it's like, the only people who are freaked out about using comedy are the people who have nothing to do with the disease. I think it's folks like you and I and other cancer survivors and stuff who are just like, they're usually so open to talk about it, like on any level.
And it's quite, when you're going through it, it's just like, it's sometimes that's like my only coping strategy is to look at the humor in it or the creative side to it, because you know, being locked in my house for 4 days, isolated, my cats were away, I couldn't get out. But I thought, you know, this is going to be my artist retreat, and I just turned it, I spun it to make it something that would help me, and I felt like I was like writing from the trenches.
Nice. You know what I'd love to do, because I just had an idea, because that's an awesome thing to say, spontaneously. I just wanted to say that this is part 1 of this conversation, and we're going to make part 2 really shortly. Okay, so we'll see you in a minute. Bye. I just thought, why don't we, instead of like taking 2 runs at it, why don't we just like keep going, and we both got 2 and 3, like, because we're hitting good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think.
And